In chapters 17 to 20, the monster demands for Frankenstein to create a second monster to keep him company. However, Frankenstein decides that this is not a good idea and chooses not to create the second monster. Why do you think he makes this decision?
I think Frankenstein is afraid of making a second monster that will do ultimately more harm than good. He also didn't want to make the second monster in the first place. He was kind of forced into it.
I agree. In chapter 17 it says, "How inconstant are your feelings, but a moment ago you were moved by my representations, and why do you again harden yourself to my complaints?" From this quote, we can see that Frankenstein was already really fickle. So it really isn't a surprise that Frankenstein ended up changing his mind.
Well, although it's really obvious that Frankenstein would change his mind, is it really clear in the story that he destroyed the second monster that he's already working on?
Yes, that seems relatively obvious. In chapter 20, it says, "Even if they were to leave Europe and inhabit the deserts of the New World, yet one of the first results of these sympathies for which the demon thirsted would be children, and a race of devils would be propagated upon the earth, who might make the very existence of the species of man a condition precarious and full of terror."
Oh, so based on the quote you give, we can see that Frankenstein was afraid of causing more harm because of the creation of the second monster. Right after the quote, it says, "Had I a right for my benefit to inflict this curse upon everlasting generations?"
So he doesn't make the second monster by the fear of destroying the next generations?
Yes, that seems like the most obvious answer.
Why does he notice this now? Like, why now? Was there a trigger or something?
Well, it's not super clear why he decides to reflect upon his decision right at that moment. But in the book, the setting is calm and quiet, as opposed to before.
That makes sense actually. Earlier he was under pressure of the monster, but now he actually got a chance to think of everything that has happened by himself, and the situation allows him to think of all the pros and cons that could result by the second monster.
Do you think that's his worst fear about the creation of the second monster, or do you think there's something worse?
Well, the author Shelley makes it clear that Frankenstein had feared the female monster wouldn't listen to the original monster and create more problems. But ultimately, I think that his worst fear is still ruining the lives of the future generation.
I think so too. He was thinking about the problem of the female not listening to the old monster, but what ultimately swayed him was his fear.
I mean, I agree with you guys, but I don't think Frankenstein is that kind of person. I don't think he really cared about the future generations. He's kind of proven himself to be that kind of guy.
That seems like an exaggeration. He made some bad choices, but that doesn't mean that he's a bad person.
Well, based on what he's done throughout the story, he is selfish, and he only cares about himself. So in this case, I think he chooses to ruin the second monster because of himself. I mean, I don't think he's necessarily a bad person, but I do think he places himself above everyone else.
What do you mean?
Frankenstein ultimately destroys the second monster because he feels disgusted with himself. I guess that means he has his own opinions on what is moral and what is not. But I think he chooses to destroy the monster not because it'll affect future generations, but because of his own thoughts.
Well, do you think he made the right decision? Do you think some of the consequences could be avoided if Frankenstein just made the second monster?
I don't think that Frankenstein made the right decision. He already promised the original monster that he would make the second monster, so he kind of went back on his word, and that's not right. Yeah.
Well, I don't agree with you. I think Frankenstein actually made the right decision this time. It was like his only right decision in the entire book.
Definitely. Frankenstein finally thought about someone other than himself. I mean, he actually considered the impact that his decision could have on other people.
I guess that's true, but what if the second monster did listen to the old monster, and all of these deaths could have been avoided?
This is just one big what-if question. We don't know anything about that second monster. All we know is that he has made a decision, and nothing can change that.
So overall, the majority of us believe that Frankenstein did in fact make the right decision in the destruction of the second monster.
Okay, fine then.
In this case, Frankenstein destroyed the second monster in fear of consequences. For near technological advances, do you think scientists should worry about the consequences, or do you think they should just focus on advancing the society?
I think scientists should be more afraid of the consequences that scientific research can bring, because it might affect the lives of many people and not just theirs.
Adding on to that, scientific research always explores the unknown, so sometimes the results may be unpredictable and may get out of hand.
I'm not sure I completely agree with you on that. Without risks, there would be no changes to society. Life is all about risks.
Maybe we don't fully understand the principle that Frankenstein applied yet. Why don't we look back into the book again?
Okay, sure.